Imagine two mountains of steel, each one longer than a city block, heavier than 350 adult elephants moving toward each other in total darkness. They cannot see each other. The men flying them cannot see each other, and the men in the control tower cannot see either of them. This is not a story about a plane that fell from the sky. This is a story about 614 people who never even left the ground. The 27th of March, 1977, the Canary Islands, the deadliest aviation disaster in human history. And it didn't start in the cockpit. It started with a bomb. That morning, a terrorist bomb detonated inside Las Palmas Airport, the original destination for dozens of international flights crossing the Atlantic. Instantly, the Spanish authorities did what made sense. They closed Las Palmas. What they didn't anticipate was the chain reaction that decision would ignite. Every single diverted flight jumbo jet after jumbo jet was rerouted to the only nearby alternative, Los Rodeos Airport in Tenerife, a small regional airport built for short-haul commuter planes. Not for this. Within hours, the tarmac was buried. Massive Boeing 747s sat parked on the taxiways, completely blocking the standard ground routes. Controllers were overwhelmed. Schedules were collapsing. Tempers were rising. And then, the fog came in. Two crews sat waiting on that fog-choked tarmac, and they could not have been more different. KLM Flight 4805, Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, one of the most celebrated pilots in the world. A man so trusted, so experienced, his face was literally on KLM's advertising posters. But that afternoon, he was a man under pressure. Dutch aviation law imposed strict limits on crew flight hours, and his window to legally depart was closing fast. Every minute on the ground was a minute closer to mandatory grounding. He was ready. He needed to go. Now, Pan Am Flight 1736, Captain Victor Grubbs, a veteran, cool-headed, frustrated by an airport he'd never flown into, taxiing through fog in a foreign language, searching for a turnoff that wasn't where the charts said it would be. He was moving, slowly, carefully, and he was directly in front of KLM, invisible in the fog. This is where language killed 583 people. When KLM's first officer requested takeoff clearance, the controller's response was a routing instruction, not permission. But Captain Van Zanten, locked into his mental model, heard what he needed to hear. He pushed the throttles forward. His flight engineer hesitated. "Is Pan Am not clear of the runway?" The captain barely paused. "Oh yes," and kept accelerating. At that exact moment, Pan Am's crew radioed the tower. "We're still on the runway." Simultaneously, the tower transmitted a warning. Two signals, same frequency, same second. In the KLM cockpit, all anyone heard was a 2-second shriek of radio interference, a sound called a heterodyne, a squeal of static that lasted just long enough to bury the only words that could have saved everyone. KLM was already doing 260 kilometers per hour. There he is. Look at him. God damn, that son of a bee is coming. Through the fog, Captain Grubb saw them first. Two blinding landing lights screaming toward him out of the darkness. He threw his engines to full reverse. He yanked the plane left, off the runway, into the dirt. In the KLM cockpit, they saw it too. A shadow, a shape, a wall of metal materializing from nothing. Van Zanten pulled back on the controls with everything he had, trying to rotate early, trying to jump, trying to climb over the obstruction that should not have been there. The nose lifted. The tail scraped the runway, a 2-0-meter scar of sparks gouged into the asphalt. Almost. KLM's engines tore through the top of the Pan Am fuselage like a blade through paper. The upper deck, the first-class cabin, gone. KLM robbed of its wings. its engines destroyed, crashed back to Earth, and slid nearly 300 meters down the runway, disintegrating, detonating, burning. In the control tower, the controllers heard the explosions. They saw the orange glow blooming through the fog, but they could not see the runway. They didn't even know which planes had collided. The radio went silent. The fog held everything in. Inside the shattered Pan Am fuselage, a few dozen people were still alive. Ceiling panels were falling. Fuel was burning. Smoke, thick, black, toxic, was filling every inch of cabin space. People jumped from holes in the fuselage where the roof used to be. They landed on burning wings and ran. A flight attendant named Dorothy Kelly guided passengers to safety until she collapsed from her own injuries. A passenger named Flory Van Beek, 71 years old, survived with a broken arm and burns across her body. 61 people walked away from Pan Am Flight 1736. From KLM Flight 4805, not one. All 248 passengers and crew perished instantly or in the fire that followed. Total dead, 583. The single worst loss of life in aviation history, before or since. The investigation lasted months. The conclusion was not simple, and it was not comfortable. This was not one man's mistake. It was not one bad decision. It was a perfect storm, a terrorist bomb, an overloaded airport, a pilot under pressure, ambiguous language, radio interference, and a wall of fog all arriving at exactly the same second. Out of the wreckage came change. Crew Resource Management, CRM, was born from Tenerife, a revolution in how pilots are trained. For the first time, co-pilots were formally empowered, required to challenge a captain's decision if something felt wrong. Seniority no longer meant silence. Standardized phraseology became mandatory across all international aviation. Cleared for takeoff means takeoff, nothing else does. Hold short means stop, no interpretation, no assumption. Every protocol you experience when you fly today, every crisp radio exchange, every deliberate confirmation, every moment a co-pilot says, "Verify," before a critical action, is a system built on the memory of 583 people who died on a runway in the fog. Next time you're sitting in an airplane, waiting on a fog-covered runway, engines spooling up, look out the window. Somewhere out there in the gray, another plane might be taxiing. A controller is managing radio signals you'll never hear. A co-pilot is watching a captain's hands. We are safe most of the time because of the lessons we learned the hard way. But we are never more than one misunderstood word, one burst of static, 1 second of silence away from the next Tenerife.